First, the House will be in order, and the chair lays before the House a communications from the Speaker. Pursuant to the order.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., April 14, 2021. I hereby appoint the Honorable Jim Costa to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 4, 2021, the chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for the morning hour debate. The chair will alternate recognition between parties with time equally allocated between the parties. And each member, other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip, will be limited to 5 minutes. But in no event shall the debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the former City of Bloomington Council member, Mayor, and McLean County Board member, Mr. Richard Buchanan. He was clearly a dedicated public servant who dedicated more than 4 decades of his life to serving the taxpayers. Sadly, Rich passed away on March 30th. Rich grew up in Clinton and graduated from Northern Illinois University, where he met the love of his life, Judy. After graduation, Richard spent 6 years serving his country in the U.S. Army Reserve. Outside of public service, he had an enduring career spanning 30 years at State Farm and raised 3 children alongside Judy. His leadership to Bloomington and McLean County will truly be missed. My prayers are with his wife Judy, his children, and all those who called Richard our friend. I rise today to remember Patricia Everhart Reese of Taylorville, a teacher and beloved community member and my friend who passed away on November 3rd, 2020. Pat taught with the Taylorville School District for many years and was influential in the development of the Lincoln Land Literacy Program. She also spent time teaching at the Taylorville Correctional Center. Pat, of course, took on many other roles in the community, one being mentor to me, and also she was the First Lady of Taylorville for 16 years and the Republican County Chairwoman for 25 years. But her service never stopped. Pat leaves a lasting impact on the Taylorville community and will be remembered as a great friend to so many. My prayers are with her husband, Dan, and their entire family at this time. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Patty Hornbuckle for her leadership and service to Taylorville and Christian County, Illinois. I had the privilege to work with Patty in her role as the CEO of the Greater Taylorville Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber is the driving force to attract new businesses, residents, and tourists in our hometown. During Patty's tenure, the Chamber experienced significant growth in membership, an increase in revenue through fundraising, and the expansion of the Chamber's signature event, the Taylorville Chili Fest. Patty's certainly going to be missed. Her leadership, while we will miss her, her leadership has set up the Chamber to continue its successful service to our community for years to come. Mr. Speaker, I wish to send my heartfelt congrats to my friend Patty, her husband Greg, and also her family. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to remember John Curtin of Taylorville and my neighbor. He was a farmer and an active community member who was our longtime county board chair, and he passed away on March 10th of 2021. John began farming in Christian County in 1957. He served 12 years as the cattle superintendent at the Illinois State Fair and president of the Illinois Angus Association. In 1984, he was a designated master farmer by Prairie Farmer. John was a dedicated servant and leader to his community, and as I mentioned, he served on the county board as chair, but he was on the board for 40 years. The Taylorville Chamber of Commerce awarded him with the Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of his community service. John was a fellow parishioner within the Holy Trinity Catholic Parish as part of St. Mary's in Stonington and Taylorville, and his legacy will be remembered forever. My prayers are with his brothers, 6 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Illinois State Trooper Todd Hanneken of Decatur, Illinois, who lost his life on March 25th. Todd fulfilled his lifelong dream of becoming a state trooper. He was a 20-year veteran of the state police and always went above and beyond the call of duty. In 2018, Todd was awarded the Illinois State Police Medal of Honor for heroic actions he took to rescue a man out of a burning car, ultimately saving that man's life. For so many, Todd was more than a state trooper. He was a husband, father, son, brother, and beloved friend. Those that knew Todd will remember him for his kindness and compassion. Todd cared deeply about his community, always wanting to help others in need. A tragic accident took Todd's life, and my prayers are with his friends and family, both at home and with the state police, and particularly his wife Shelley and sons Ben and Nick. Todd was a hero in every sense of the word and will truly be missed. I yield back.
Yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Hoyer, for such time as he shall consume.
Thank you very much, Speaker Costa. In March, the House passed legislation to award a Congressional Gold Medal to the men and women of the U.S. Capitol Police for their heroism on January 6th and for their daily efforts to protect the institutions of our democracy. On April 3rd, once again, we saw an example, not only the dangers in which they placed themselves through their service, but also the courage they bring to that service. In the short span of fewer than 100 days, the U.S. Capitol Police Force lost 3 members as a result of attacks on the Capitol complex. Yesterday, we honored one of those Capitol policemen, Billy Evans. But in a real sense, we honored every member of the United States Capitol Police. Some years ago, I lost a member of the Capitol Police who lived in my district, J.J. Chestnut. Wendy, his wife, was at the ceremony yesterday for Billy Evans. That was in 1998. He and Officer Gibson lost their lives in defending this Capitol on that date. And while a Congressional Gold Medal is very fitting tribute, it can neither lessen the grief felt by their fellow officers nor reduce the sense of unease that so many of them must still be feeling today. This has been a challenging time for the Congress, Mr. Speaker, and for all of us. But it certainly has been a time of challenge for the Capitol Police Force. And surely the force will be going through a period of change and adaptation for some time to come, as will all of us who serve here in the Capitol complex. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk a moment on this floor to say thank you for those who still stand watch at the doors and the vehicle barriers, who patrol the neighborhoods and the office buildings, who sit ready to respond quickly and courageously to any emergency, never knowing what the next alarm might bring. And in particular, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the men and women who have served on the security detail that the Capitol Police have assigned to me in my role as Majority Leader. You get to know them as friends, as protectors, and as family. Since being elected to the House leadership, I've been privileged to know some of the best of the force. They are representative of an extraordinary group of people. In order to protect their safety and privacy, I'll not share their names, but they know who they are. Each and every one of them not only have an immense gratitude and respect, for they have the admiration of my entire staff, whom they have gotten to know very well. Again, Mr. Speaker, as I know them, I know that they are representative of an extraordinary group of people that we call the United States Capitol Police. On January 6th, when the rioters first breached the Capitol's defenses, these officers acted without delay, according to their training, to get me quickly to a safe location. But they couldn't get everybody, and so many were still in this chamber as the insurrectionist cried for lives of members of Congress. Capitol Police checked in with staff and did their best to get us information in a situation that was chaotic and rapidly changing for us, but more importantly for them on the front lines. My security detail until the last Congress had been led by an officer who now serves in the force in a more senior capacity. He was by my side almost every day for nearly 2 decades. I came to know him and his family well, just as I have other members of my detail. As I said, they're like family to all of us in the Majority Leader's office. I know that's true of the Minority Leader's office and the Whip's office and the Speaker's office and the Democratic Whip's office and our Senate counterparts. The senior officer of my detail formerly was president of the Capitol on January 6th, and he acted heroically. And he was the one that tried to save the life of the woman who was shot, who was an insurrectionist, because he stood next to her, unarmed, when that incident occurred. He acted heroically in trying to keep the rioters away from the House chamber and in responding when one of them was shot in the hallway, as I just pointed out. I know that the events of that day still weigh very heavily on him and on each of us, on his colleagues, on all of us. And I hope that he and his colleagues, Mr. Speaker, know that their grief weighs heavily on all of us whom they protect and serve. President Joseph Biden, in speaking yesterday to the family of Officer Evans, showed the empathy. He showed that he felt their pain, their concerns, their trauma. And I would urge all my colleagues, when you see members of the United States Capitol Police, uniformed or in plain clothes, that you thank them. I talked about Officer Chestnut. Wendy, as I said, his wife was here yesterday. He was shot in the back by the assailant who then shot Officer Gibson in the office that I now occupy. It was Tom DeLay's office at that point in time. Mr. Speaker, we thank them, we honor them, but the way we really need to respond to them is to make sure they have the resources, the training, the equipment, and the authority to respond those who confront them with violence and fatal force. We lost Officer Sicknick. This Capitol was invaded because there were restraints, frankly, on the United States Capitol Police. We need to make sure that they have the authority to respond, to protect this Capitol, this democracy, our members, our staff, the visitors to this Capitol, but also, Mr. Speaker, importantly, themselves. We know that this is a difficult moment, and the Capitol Police Force is facing challenges like never before in its 193-year history. In the early 60s, I worked here as an intern in the United States Senator's office, and I have a number of my friends who were also in law school or some other school who were Capitol cops, we call them. Thankfully, the risks were minimal. That is not true today. And as the risks are great, we must respond robustly to ensure that we have the capacity and the will to meet those risks. Mr. Speaker, may God bless and protect our U.S. Capitol Police officers. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time, and I thank the gentleman for his comments. The chair will now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Joyce,
Mr.
for
Speaker,
5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to address the House and ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr.